This is my wife's 2007 Mazda 3 hatchback, and it doesn't run. So let's go through the process of diagnosing why it doesn't run and, just showing you guys my process and how to figure this out. So this is specifically a no crank issue. So I turn the key, engine does nothing. So diagnosing this is a little different than diagnosing a crank but no start issue where the engine spins over. So put the key in the ignition and I turn it, and as I turn it, nothing. No engine noise, nothing. So quick stuff that you can do to figure out what path you should look into more. Right off the bat, we see lights on the dash, we hear radio noises, we know the battery is at least somewhat good. We can't rule the battery out all the way yet, but everything looks fine, so it's not 100% the battery. Another quick check while we're in here, when you turn the key to the run position, the radio loses power. So if I turn the key to the run position and the car recognizes that I'm turning the key, then the radio should lose power. If it doesn't lose power, that means when I'm turning the key, the ignition switch is not working. So I'm going to turn the key, and as you saw, it just lost power, which means our ignition switch should be good. So we can start looking at other stuff. Let's pop the hood and let's take a look at our battery, because that would be the #1 suspect to no crank, no start issues. Taking this cover off, this is where our battery is. Now, I just put a new battery in this car. The battery did die. We just put a new battery. But unfortunately, in today's world, you can't rule out new batteries. New batteries can sometimes go bad. That's just the world we live in now. So I got myself a digital multimeter right here. And just to see real quick what the voltage is. And 12.2. So, this is healthy. This battery's healthy. Yeah, another check, if you don't have a multimeter on you, turn your headlights on. And if they look bright, good chance your battery has enough charge. Now, the other thing could be is your battery just doesn't have enough cranking force in order to jumpstart the car. So to confirm your battery has enough cranking force, get a jumper like this or hook up some jumper cables, and that will tell you right there if your battery's good or not, because this is going to have enough power to crank a car. Next thing you want to do is check your fuses. Now, we're trying to do all the simple stuff first so we don't overlook anything. And with my multimeter, I got it set to continuity, so if I touch the leads, you hear a beep. So we're going to touch the fuses, see if I can do this with one hand. So we're going to go to each fuse and just touch the leads. And if we hear a beep, then we know the fuse is good. That's a good easy check to tell your fuses. Now, cars typically have 2 fuse boxes, one in the engine bay, one in the inside. Sometimes it's on this driver's side. In this case, it's on the passenger side underneath the glove box. So I already went through and checked all the fuses. Everything's good there. So now we got to move on to our next step. Next easy check, if your car has a starter relay, locate it and then figure out what relay you could swap with it. So in this case, this one is the starter relay. This is for the heater. So we can swap the relays and see if it's the relay that's bad. Although we know it's not the relay, because if you had someone else, you could have them turn the key, and when they turn it to crank, you'll hear the relay click. That means it's being activated. So we know the relay's fine. We have something else to look at. The next thing we check is put the headlights on and then crank it like you're trying to start it. And if the starter is getting draw, then the headlights should dim. If they don't draw, if the headlights don't dim, then there's no big load going on. The starter's not getting the power that it wants. So at this point, we ruled out it's not a bad battery. We're not getting a draw from the starter, and good chance the ignition switch is not bad. So that leaves us with, why is the starter not getting a draw on it? Is it security related, or is it just the wires to the starter? Now, if you do some research on these cars, this Mazda 3 is pretty infamous for having corroded contacts to the starter. So that's where I'm going to lead. Experience / internet. So I'm going to jack this car up. You're going to take the belly pan off. We're going to take a look at the leads to the starter and see what we can find. Now, unfortunately, the ground's wet, but you got to do what you got to do. Got the car safely jacked up. Going to slide under it, and I'll bring you right to what I believe might be going on. So this is the starter just up here. You can see just a bolt for the starter motor itself. And if you see that white connector in there, I think people refer to this as the S connector. This is the one that's known for getting corroded. That or the terminal on the starter, and that starter terminal, is just rust colored, but not that crispy white green electrical corrosion color. So what I'm gonna do is unplug this. Alright, because I'm a bit of a baby, I disconnected the battery and I put my hands up here and unplugged it. And as you see, that terminal is just rusty, and that could be enough to give us a bad connection. So since I disconnected the battery, I could hook up the battery and then try to jump the bridge from that terminal to the stud, but I'm just gonna scrape this up with some sandpaper and get it shiny again and see if we're in business. Alright, pro tip: if your security system goes off on your Mazda 3 or any of the Mazdas from this year range, 2007, 2010-ish, disconnect the battery, wait 10 minutes, and then when you reconnect the battery, have the key in the on position and then reconnect it. For some reason, that's what seemed to work. Now I should be able to open the door. No flashing light. Yeah, I don't know, weird. But we cleaned the contacts up, and I was playing around with it, and now we're getting a click. So we got the security system beaten now. So no more security issue. Now we just have the click. This is what the initial issue was. So now I think it's time to just try jumping the starter and see if it is just a bad connection. Alright, here's what I come up with to test this. Starter, solenoid / starter. So really, we'd want to have someone in the car turn the key, and with a multimeter we're checking if the starter solenoid gets that 12 volt key on switch, or key turned power. But if it's just you out here, you don't have another person, I have this power probe and we're going to take advantage of it. So we got the power probe hooked up to the battery, and now we're going to the starter solenoid terminal. The power probe lights up green, that means it's grounded, there's no internal short, which is good. Now if I press the up one where it applies power to whatever we're touching, we're going to hear the starter solenoid click if the starter solenoid is good. And that's exactly what we're hearing. That's the same noise we're hearing when we're turning the key, and the starter motor is just not spinning. I'm going to put the key to the on position and do it, but it should still do the same thing. Alright, same thing, keys on, you hear the fuel pump noise. Nothing. So by using the power probe to apply direct power to the starter solenoid, we are bypassing all the wiring in the car. We are directly powering the starter, and it's not turning on, it's just clicking. That means the motor it's done. The starter motor is bad. I'm gonna crank it again with the key, just so you hear that noise. Stick you out the car and crank. Oh. Alright. It started cranking, but this is a symptom we had. I can start it up, it's going to run, but I don't want it to run right now. But this is the problem we had, where all of a sudden, like, sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. We thought it was just the key ignition, because we would have to wiggle it and then it would work. That was just coincidence. It is purely a bad starter motor. See, sometimes the solenoid works, sometimes it doesn't. It's just clicking. I mean, really, I guess it could be something between the starter solenoid to the starter motor, like the wiring that transfers right there. It's time for a new starter. It's going to make me feel better. It's going to make my wife feel better. Alright, so we figured that issue out. Now, I'm not going to start it right now because, you know, it's going to, out here, it's going to rain, and it's going to rain hard. And right now, I need to put this car into the garage where the Spitfire is over there, and that Spitfire, you know, with the top up, it leaks a little bit, and if it's going to rain, I'd rather it be in the garage for the night, and then tomorrow, while it's raining, I push the cars around. Hopefully this car starts so I can just drive it in, and, you know, all is good, but yeah, we need to replace the starter on this. That's all. It's just the internal contacts from the solenoid to the starter are, you know, a weak connection there. Maybe the wiring could be cleaned up from the solenoid to the starter, but, you know, it's time. Just throw a new starter in. Hopefully you're able to follow along with my diagnosis process, but yeah, we got this figured out. I think I'll make a video putting the starter in, but yeah, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.